During President Obama's 2 terms in office, Chief White House photographer Pete Souza was there for moments of historic importance, as well as lighter and more personal moments with the president and his family. Souza's new book, An Intimate Portrait, showcases 300 of the nearly 2 million photographs he took during those 8 years. And Pete Souza joins us now. Welcome, Pete. I want to ask you about your role in the room. You're taking photographs, you're recording history, you're recording a moment, but you're also capturing an emotion in that moment. There's a picture in particular in the Oval Office where the president is meeting with some young activists, and the way you framed it, they're African-American activists, you framed it with a bust of Martin Luther King, Lincoln's on the wall. Tell us about that process a little bit when you're capturing a moment like that.
Well, I was consciously aware of the bust, obviously, during the meeting itself when they're seated around the chairs and the sofa, and it just was not lining up. And just as the meeting broke up, the president had a last exchange with them, and that's when I went and tried to get that bust in the foreground and include Lincoln.
And do you have a kind of a sort of emotional sense of the moment, which is in your head, but you're also trying to capture what's right in front of you too, right?
Trying to capture a moment, but trying to accurately portray the mood and the emotion of what's taking place.
You obviously had extraordinary access to the family, and one picture that struck me was the president with his daughter. They're on the swing set. Mm-hmm. What does that picture mean to you?
It actually means a lot to me. It was during the BP oil spill, and he had just finished a meeting and was walking to his desk, and he saw Malia out on the swing set. And even though he only had 5 minutes with her, he was all in with her. There was no BlackBerry, there were no aides hovering around. He spent, 5 quality minutes with Malia just in the middle of the day.
Did you ever feel like, maybe this is a too intimate a moment, I shouldn't be here? How do you wrestle with that?
It's intuition, and in that particular case, I tried to make a really good picture, and then I backed off and let them have their private conversation.
You were also there for the nitty-gritty of government and business and deals, and there's a picture where the president seems to be motioning to somebody who's left the room. What's going on in that picture?
I'm glad you chose that picture to highlight. I love that picture because I think it tells you a lot about his relationship with Nancy Pelosi, who you don't even see. They had just had a meeting in the Oval Office, and they had this really interesting back and forth. And as Nancy was, the leader was leaving towards the West Wing lobby, he was pleading with her one last time. And if you look really closely in the picture, you can see her hand sticking out in the doorway.
There's another picture which is just of the president's head, and what strikes me about some of these pictures is he is trying to find space in a room full of people. Maybe that's a misreading, but the presidency is both a lonely office and an office in which they're picking at you all the time. What is that picture that you captured just of him? He's got his hands together almost in prayer. Kathleen Sebelius is right behind him. What's going on in that picture?
As I recall, that was during the healthcare debate, and just in the weeks leading up to the vote in Congress.
And another moment, of course, when pictures when the president went to comfort the families at Sandy Hook Elementary. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
He calls that the worst day of his presidency. I mean, the day that he found out what had happened at Sandy Hook. You have to remember that was only 4 weeks after he was reelected to the president. We were in the midst of the Christmas season. The White House is decorated with Christmas lights and trees. It was a very joyous time, and then this awful tragedy happened. And I think he was looking at it not just as a president, but as a parent, imagining what it must be like for you to send your 6-year-old kid off to school, what we all consider a safe zone, and then you find out you're never going to see them again because they were shot to death.
When you look at the subject that you photographed over this 8-year period and putting this book together, what do you come away with? The presidency rests on that figure. How did that figure change between the first photograph and the last?
I always tell people that I knew him when he was first elected to the Senate in 2005, and by the end of the administration, the character of the man had not changed at all. I think his core was still the same. I look through the book now, and so many things happened during his administration. There's so many issues you have to deal with, and yet you still try to maintain a normal life, family life, as a father and a husband.
All right, Pete Souza, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll be back in a moment.